Hi guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video I'm so excited for because we're officially on the cusp of fall, which can only mean one thing. It's time to chat through some of my most anticipated releases for this season. And honestly, the dreary, gloomy, rainy day in which I'm filming this video just perfectly matches the vibe I hope that all of these books sort of bring into my life. But before we dive into the books themselves, first a word from this video's sponsor, which is June's Journey. I'm so excited to be working with June's Journey for this video because I honestly could not think of a better companion with your spooky fall read this upcoming season than a delightfully fun murder mystery found object video game. I mean, those two things are a match made in heaven. But if you're not familiar, June's Journey is a free mobile app game in which you play as June. She's traveling back to her hometown, which is called Orchid Island, and she's trying to solve the mystery surrounding the death of her sister. So you play as June as you not only go through various scenes to collect clues and unlock new characters to try to figure out what in the world happened to her sister and solve this mystery, but also while you're home on Orchid Island, you're working alongside friends and other people to sort of bring this island back to life with decorating and revamping it with new items. And the interplay of this game is so fun because these two mechanics work hand in hand. You have to work to decorate your island to unlock further scenes within the murder mystery itself. And as both a narrative video game and decorative game lover, I love that I can have my two favorite things together in one place. The aesthetics of this game is also fantastic. It's set in the 20s, so it really has that kind of glamorous 1920s backdrop and setting, and you see this not only in the murder mystery scenes, but also in the aesthetics and furniture you're able to decorate within the game too. And honestly, as a whodunit mystery lover, the storyline of June's Journey is incredibly compelling. I love collecting all of the clues and discovering all of the hidden objects within each crime scene that we're sort of working through as June. And there's even a book that you can refer back to and kind of look at summaries of various scenes that you've played through and all the different clues and things you discovered along the way so you can work to sort of piece together this mystery. I love that this game can be played in short bursts. It's really fun to pick up and down, and the storyline itself is very compelling. And I honestly feel like it's perfect for any book lover out there who loves a narrative storyline that's going to draw you in. Again, you can download June's Journey for free by clicking the link down below in my description or by scanning the QR code on the screen. June's Journey is available on iOS and Android mobile devices, as well as PC through Facebook Games. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into my most anticipated fall releases. To put it simply, there are so many books coming out over the next 3 months, and narrowing this list down was honestly so difficult. So without further ado, we're just gonna go ahead and dive right in for the month of August, starting off with Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan. This book technically came out at the very tail end of July, but it feels very much like a fall vibe read and honestly sounds like something I want to get to right away. And this is a story, and this I believe is like a fantasy romance story and a tale for anyone who's ever fallen in love with the villain of a story. And this story follows our main character Ray, whose entire life fell apart, but even in that she still had her favorite books, and one day she's transported within the story itself. She wakes up in her own favorite fantasy story and she realizes that she's not the hero of the day, but in fact the villainess. And this is said to be an adventure both brilliant and funny, very tongue-in-cheek. And I have another book that's sort of following a character that's kind of putting us in the shoes of the villain, and I feel like this could be a really fun and playful story. I've read this author's YA novels in the past, so I'm curious to check out her adult fantasy debut. Next is probably one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and that is A Sorcerer Comes to Call by T. Kinfisher. And this book comes out August 6th. I love this author so much. I've read so many of her books, and I just feel like she perfectly is able to capture that dark fairy tale vibe. And this book is actually a retelling of the Brothers Grimm's Goose Girl story, and I just already know I'm going to be obsessed, and it's full of secrets, murder, and dark magic. Need I say more? I will. In this story, we follow our main character Cordelia, and she knows that her mother is unusual. She knows that other people definitely have doors in their house. Other people also allow their daughters to have friends, and Cordelia's only friend is the horse and companion that she's able to ride every day, and also provides her only feeling of freedom. Her mother also makes them flee in the middle of the night after a mysterious death occurs occurs within the village in which they live, and they flee to this like faraway manor house where an older man lives with his sister, and Cordelia's mother begins to hatch a plan. I already know this book is going to be dark and lyrical. I love any book inspired by a fairy tale sort of reference point. I love T.Ken Fisher's writing. I cannot wait to read this. Another book I simply cannot wait to read, and I really try to keep these videos with only first books in a series or like standalone novels, but I do have two series that I just have to give a shout out. The first one is Amari and the Despicable Wonders, and this book comes out August 27th and is the third book in the Supernatural Investigation series, which is a middle grade fantasy series I have been delighted by since book one. The writing style, the whimsical nature, and just the pure creativity of this world and setting has absolutely delighted me. I love Amari, I love B.B. Alston's writing, and I cannot wait for the third book in this series. If you're not familiar, this is a story following our main character Amari, and she has never believed that her older brother Quentin is still alive, despite what everyone in her life tries to tell her. So when she finds a ticking briefcase in her older brother's closet with an invitation and information about this borough of supernatural affairs, Amari's life is turned upside down forever, and now she's enrolled in this sort of like supernatural academy and realizes her brother was actually a top agent within this bureaucracy that sort of protect humanity against evil and dangerous creatures and people, and a conspiracy also begins to balloon from there. I can't say enough good things about this series, and I truly cannot wait for book 3, and I'm happy that the wait is finally coming to an end. Another very highly anticipated release is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid, which comes out August 6th. August 6th is a very big day for book releases, if I'm being honest. This, of course, is Ava Reid's dark feminist reimagining of the tale of Macbeth, but centering Lady Macbeth in this story, and I'm really curious to see how the whole thing is going to play out. I really love Shakespeare, and particularly like kind of reimagining of Shakespeare stories. I've also really enjoyed Ava Reid's stories in the past, some of them more than others, but I find her writing style to be very compelling and dark and twisty. I've sort of heard mixed things about this upcoming release, but I'm also just curious to see where I'm going to fall in terms of my own thoughts and feelings about it. But I of course had to include it within this list because I mean the cover alone is truly stunning. Another book coming out on August 6th I truly cannot wait to read is The Seventh Veil of Salome by Silvia Moreno Garcia. We all know how much I love Silvia Moreno Garcia on this channel. I've read basically every single book that she has put out. She combines elements of fantasy and horror and intrigue in such interesting ways. Every book of hers that she releases also feels like wholly unique and original to her previous releases, and I just love to see like what in the world she's going to do next because I'm always caught off guard. And this is described as a sumptuous historical epic set in the 1950s in Hollywood, and we follow our main character who is a young woman who sort of secures the role of a lifetime, thinking her entire life is going to transform from here, but the real drama and angst is actually occurring behind the scenes on this movie set. This is a story that is said to center three women, the two women who are competing for this role to play this sort of legendary figure in time and history, as well as that woman herself. And I think all of these storylines become intertwined in a really complex and interesting way. Again, I love this author. I trust this author with anything she wants to release, and I cannot wait to read it. The next book also comes out on August 6th, and that is The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey. This dynamic sci-fi duo is back with a first book in a all-new series, and I could not be more excited, especially because I am officially almost done with the Expanse series, so I actually feel like I could read this very soon in the upcoming months. The book itself sounds very intense. First figure we're introduced to is the Karax, which is part Empire, part Hive, and they have been waging war within the galaxy now for centuries, absorbing and forcing anyone and anything into like their larger hive with little choice and a lot of violence. Now they're apparently facing a new deathless enemy, and apparently the key to their survival is with another group called the Anjin. And the Anjin are a group of humans, and the Karax basically come and descend upon them one day, taking their best and brightest away with them to try to solve their like larger problem with this faraway enemy. And now I think we're following a variety of characters who have been taken captive and kind of the political realities of this situation. I already know that this book is going to be incredibly intense and also is probably going to balloon into a lot of different directions just based on the experience I've had with these authors in the past. I'm so pumped that I'm almost done with The Expanse and that I already have a new series lined up by them. I really enjoy their writing so much, and I'm just excited to see what they're going to get up to next. Next up is a more cozy fantasy option, and that is The Phoenix Keeper, which comes out August 13th. This is said to be like a cozy romance story with a really fun sounding fantasy background. We basically follow our main character who is the head Phoenix Keeper at a world-renowned magical zoo, and her dream is to sort of help preserve these critically important fantastical creatures for many years to come. But the program that she has worked so hard to get off the ground and also maintain is sort of struggling, especially when a neighboring zoo had to deal with like a phoenix heist that impacted their program as well. Things get especially complicated when a new hotshot griffin keeper joins the zoo program. And I'm honestly just very curious to see how this whole thing is going to play out. We've got a magical zoo with magical creatures. We've got characters who care about these creatures. And obviously we have sort of an academic work rivals to lovers situation clearly being set up. It sounds fun, endearing, cozy, and definitely a lighter read that I can have interspersed between some of the darker ones I'm reading this month. And my last upcoming August release is Sunder, which comes out August 20th, and this book sounds impeccable, and I'm honestly on the edge of my seat waiting for this release. In this story, we follow two main characters. The first is Karis, who is a death speaker. She basically made a deal with a supernatural creature, which gives her the ability to communicate with the recently departed. This also helps her pay the rent and keep the lights on as she takes on various jobs around the city. But one day when a job goes sideways, her life is upended completely. This book seems to be full of ghosts, arcane horrors, and two characters who have to kind of work in an unlikely fashion alongside each other, learn to trust one another as they pursue this sort of dangerous future. And I just feel like this book is going to be weird and twisty in all of my favorite ways, and I cannot wait to pick it up. Alrighty, moving on now to the month of September. The first book I'm so excited to check out is So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison, and this book comes out September 10th. This looks like a rompy, over-the-top vampire novel that's also like part midlife crisis, possible like end of marriage sort of situation. This follows our main character Salone, who is not looking forward to her upcoming birthday. Her husband surprises her with an unexpected trip with her BFF at like a cottage. She's expecting a low-key weekend of wine tasting and just sort of relaxing together to catch up, but her best friend has other plans. Naomi wants her to sort of seize life once again and possibly leave her terrible husband. Their wild night out leaves both of them with unexpected, eternal consequences, if you get my drift. This sounds really, really fun. I feel like it's kind of taking a classic setup and story and adding a little bit of a paranormal twist. I also feel like this could be a really good book club book. The next book that's on my list is The Scarlet Throne, which also comes out September 10th. This book sounds very, very intense. In this story, we follow our main character Binsa, who is a living goddess, chosen by the gods to basically dispense both mercy and punishment from her place on the Scarlet Throne. But Binsa is harboring a huge secret, and that is she was never chosen by the gods. She actually made a deal with a demon, and now the priests are starting to get suspicious, but Binsa will do anything to maintain and control her power and prevent her from being back in the streets where she was originally pulled from. This book sounds incredibly intense, very interesting, and I think from a plot starting place, I'm really curious to see how this book is going to continue to unfurl. I also feel like this is going to possibly center some gray morality, which I also enjoy. I don't know. I feel like this could be a favorite, and I'm hopeful for it. Next up is The Immortal Dark, which comes out September 3rd, and honestly the tagline of this book completely sold me, and I honestly did not need to know anything else. This is described as The Cruel Prince meets Ninth House, two books I very much enjoy, and this is said to be a dangerously romantic dark academia fantasy story, and we follow a lost heiress who must infiltrate an arcane society and live amongst the vampire that she suspects to have killed her family. I mean, the setup alone, we've got dark academia, magical university. We got a main character who has to sort of present a front and trick and play people. We've got vampires, we've got forbidden romance. I'm sold. I'm gonna read this book, definitely. Next up, we have An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson. I really enjoy Alexis Henderson's books. She writes these sort of dark and creepy fantasy meets horror stories, and this upcoming release is gothic horror and kind of dark academia as well, and I truly could not be more excited for it. And this is a story that introduces us to our main character, Lennon Carter, and Lennon Carter's life is falling apart. At the beginning of this book, she receives an invitation to this very mysterious, very reclusive, and magical school. Our main character knows why she received this invitation because she has the innate gift for persuasion, and upon entering the school and beginning her lesson, she realizes that she's drawn not only to her studies but also the pursuit of her own power, and she's also drawn to this sort of mysterious figure in her life named Dante. I feel like this book is going to be lush and delicious about the balance of power. Innately, just sort of the magical pursuit is really interesting too because it has clearly to do with a bit of mind control. Again, I love Alexis Henderson's previous releases, and this one especially feels like it's going to have a lot of inputs I'm curious about. Next up is the Village Library Demon Hunting Society, which comes out September 24th. This is a cozy murder mystery book, and it honestly sounds really playful and endearing. It follows our main character, who is a librarian, and she basically is like solving all of these murder mysteries on the side, and she's becoming increasingly concerned with the body count that is existing within her small town that she lives and works in, and things get especially worrisome when someone close to her ends up dead, and she thinks that her cat is actually possessed by a demon. So she begins to recruit others to help solve the mystery of what in the world is going on, and it kind of turns into like an exorcism sort of situation. Again, this just sounds sort of playful, pulling on a lot of the well-known tropes that exist within this genre, and I also feel like a perfect fall read leading up to Halloween. The next book is A Dark and Drowning Tide, which is by Alison Saft, who also wrote A Far Wilder Magic, a book I read last year around the same time. And honestly, it brought some very good fall vibes, and I have a feeling this upcoming release will very much do the same. This basically follows our two main characters. The first is a folklorist who's traveling with her mentor to try to find this lost spring, but everything turns upside down when her mentor actually passes away tragically. Now she's forced to work alongside her academic rival to figure out what in the world is going on and also unlock the secrets surrounding this spring. This is said to be a lush, romantic, eerie, sapphic romance, and honestly, say no more. I already feel like this is going to be a favorite. Alrighty, moving on now to the month of October. The first book that is on my list is The Bog Wife, which comes out October 1st. This is said to be a very dark Southern Gothic story following the story of siblings who must unearth long-buried secrets to carve out a future when the supernatural bargain entwining their fate in their ancestral land is suddenly ruptured. And that bargain is this one family has been living on this cranberry bog for generations and generations, and every generation they basically sacrifice their patriarch to this bog. The land basically returns to them this woman made of the land called the Bog Wife, which carries on the family line. However, though, the bog is now seemingly refusing to honor this bargain, and I think things get very weird and very windy from there. I love weird, strange books, and this feels like it's gonna deliver exactly that, and I just need to know what's going on with this bog. The next book I truly cannot wait to read is Air by Sabaa Tahir. I really love Sabaa Tahir's writing, and while I don't typically read a lot of YA fantasy anymore, I knew when she announced this new series I had to check it out, and also the setup and synopsis sounds rather compelling to me. We're basically following a group of unlikely characters who sort of come crashing into each other's lives. The first is a fugitive who gets locked up in an inescapable prison where her anger and ire begins to continue to rise. We follow a down on her luck tracker who uses the earth, wind, and air to find her marks. We also follow a crowned prince who has the mantle of power sort of thrust upon him despite the fact that he has no interest in ruling, and apparently a killer who will bring the empire to its knees. I already know this is going to be a really entertaining and engrossing story, sort of bringing all of these unlikely characters together. I really enjoyed Sabaa Tahir's previous fantasy trilogy I read many years ago, and I'm so looking forward to seeing what she's going to do next. Next up is A Song to Drown Rivers, which comes out October 1st. This is said to be an epic historical fantasy story inspired by the story of Shisha, who's one of the famous four beauties of ancient China, and this story in particular is said to be full of war, sacrifice, and love against all odds. Her beauty hides a deadly purpose. Follow our main character, who is obviously incredibly beautiful, and her beauty is just assumed to sort of let her live the normal path, marry well, bring honor to her family in sort of the expected ways, but she's actually offered the opportunity to use her beauty in a different way. That is for power and the ability to help improve the lives of her people by taking on a neighboring force. I'm curious about this one. The early reviews are really strong, and in general I love historical fantasy stories, so I'm really curious to see the sort of blend between those two things within this one. The next book that's coming out in October is The City in Glass, which comes out October 1st, and this is by Nevo. Nevo is personally one of my favorite sci-fi fantasy authors, and this standalone fantasy novel sounds particularly interesting. It basically centers this one city and its destruction, and it also follows a demon and an angel who are connected through this city itself. The first main character we follow is actually a demon, and she has overlooked this one city for many many years, and she loves this city immensely. She's mothered in this city, she's married in this city, and she's also mad in this city. She's built this city into a place of joy, desire, revelry, and riot. However, though, everything changed the day the angels came and burned the city to the ground. And I believe we then followed this demon as she's left to mourn the loss of this city, and she's also tied inexplicably to the angel who burned the city down too. And I think these two characters sort of have to go on a journey together as they begin to unearth the city itself. It sounds very strange. I already know Nevo's writing is very lyrical and very beautiful, and just the concept of this really draws me in, and I'm hoping I'm gonna love it. Next up is The Scholar of the Last Fairy Door, which comes out October 22nd, and this also seems to combine so many of my favorite things: magical university, fae, and the mysteries and curses that surround both of these things. And apparently this book is bursting with fairy curses, deadly magic between friends. In this story, we're introduced to our main character Clover, and basically in World War I, a fairy door was opened and a fairy curse sort of entered the battlefield of World War I. The magic and history of fae were also slightly revealed, so therefore it's high priority for anyone sort of moving within magical circles to not only close this door but solve this curse, which is where again our main character Clover comes in, because she also has a personal stake in this, and that is because her brother was also affected by this. She is also a scholar at a magical university within England, and now Clover finds herself also moving amongst the magical aristocracy and all of the drama and opportunity that might present her. I love that this seemingly combines elements of fae, history, and fantasy into one hopefully very entertaining package. Next up is one of my most anticipated releases that's also a final book within a trilogy, and that is The Fury of Gods by John Gwen. This is the third book within the Bloodsworn saga, and I cannot wait to see how this action-packed series is going to come to an end. This is a Norse mythology-inspired Viking-esque story wherein which we're following a huge cast of characters, some venturing out into the world to find their glory, some of them looking for revenge. Everyone becomes intertwined in very unexpected fashions. You have so many characters to root for and fall in love with. There's gods, there's betrayal, there's blood, there's gore. It's excellent, and I truly cannot wait for the third and final installment. Next, I have Metal from Heaven, which comes out October 22nd, and this is described for fans of Gideon the Ninth and the Princess Bride, two of my favorite stories out there, and honestly those two books also feel rather different from each other, so I'm very curious to see what kind of story this is going to be. Part sapphic romance, part bloody revenge tale, part revolution. This is a book set in a kind of fantastical industrial setting that seems to be centering manufacturing and strike within a fantasy setting. I'm curious about this one. Again, all of the early reviews are super strong, and the inputs are definitely something that interests me. And then lastly, I have The Night Ward, which comes out October 15th. This is a first book to a new fantasy sci-fi duology, and it's said to be inspired by both Caribbean mythology and The Witcher. Again, I love the combination of both of these two things. It introduces us to a world where women warrior magicians rule, and we follow a child princess who's forced to flee with her bodyguard after an attempted coup and a wave of darkness that has been sent to kill her. This sounds incredibly intense, and I also love the setup of like a guard who's like a reluctant royal babysitter whose life is kind of turned upside down because what was supposed to be a slow job is now an incredibly intense job, as these two characters are on the run, not only from their political rivals, but seemingly like dark creatures coming out of the night too. I have really high expectations for this book. This is technically a debut full-length novel. This author has won many awards for their short stories, and I truly am so excited to pick this book up. Alrighty guys, those are my most anticipated fall book releases. Again, big shout out to this video's sponsor, which is June's Journey. You can download June's Journey for free by clicking the link down below in the description or by scanning the QR code on the screen. Quick reminder that June's Journey is available on iOS and Android mobile devices, as well as PC through Facebook games. Thank you again so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!